Justin Trudeau's cabinet shuffle cost you big bucks, and it may embarrass the country. I'm Brian Lilly with the Rebel.media. So Stéphane Dion and John McCallum are going to leave politics and become ambassadors, and Chrystia Freeland will be their boss as the minister in charge of foreign affairs. Sorry, make that global affairs Canada. These are the big shuffles in Trudeau's cabinet shuffle, and what could possibly go wrong with this? Plenty, actually, but before I get to that, can I just point out that the cost to taxpayers of Trudeau effectively retiring Stéphane Dion and John McCallum will be between $600,000 and $1 million for the by-elections? Yeah, once again, you pay for Trudeau's needs, his political needs, vacation needs, nanny needs, whatever Trudeau needs, you pay for it big time. Now let's start with the diplomatic postings of Stéphane Dion and John McCallum. The word was Dion would be ambassador to France, the country that he holds citizenship in. Then word came out he didn't want that, so instead he's going to be the ambassador to the European Union and Germany. Dion has gone from being a golden boy cabinet minister in Jean Chrétien's days to a hapless leader and now a grumpy face in Trudeau's cabinet. So he's going to fit right in with the EU bureaucracy. McCallum, he likely would have loved the ambassador's job in France with the history, the art, the cuisine, the great cocktail culture. But given his trouble telling Vimy Ridge from the Vichy regime that collaborated with the Nazis, they're wisely sending McCallum to China, apparently to negotiate a free trade deal with the currency manipulators in Beijing. And speaking of Beijing and dealing with the Chinese government, this woman is now Canada's top diplomat.
We're quite proud. The Prime Minister has been given a fond nickname in China. He is called Trudeau, which I believe means potato, and I can't say the Chinese word, it's Xian Trudeau, little potato.
Yes, that is Chrystia Freeland, our new foreign minister, calling the Prime Minister little potato, with a bad Chinese accent. And she is now in charge of diplomacy. Truly, what could go wrong?
Xian Trudeau, little potato.
Okay, so she could do that again, or something else, something silly, something offensive, just downright stupid. But Freeland is now in charge of advancing Canada's interests on the world stage, dealing with foreign governments and the many multilateral institutions that Canada is part of, even institutions that she doesn't think that we belong in.
Canada's a member of the G7. We don't really deserve that.
That's just brilliant. Did you catch that? I'll play it again. Chrystia Freeland, now the minister in charge of Canada's foreign policy, doesn't think Canada belongs in the G7.
Canada's a member of the G7. We don't really deserve that.
What else could she possibly do? Well, she's already banned in Russia. Freeland was one of more than a dozen Canadians banned from Russia over sanctions that Canada imposed on Putin and his pals for annexing Crimea. That was back in 2014. Now, on this front, I think it's a good thing, a badge of honor for Freeland. She called it that herself in March 2014 when this happened. But that was back when the Liberals were happy to join in on denouncing Putin. Then we were told by the Liberals we needed better relations and they would hit the reset button like Hillary and Barack did. Now, I'm not sure Trudeau's position on Putin and Russia. I mean, given the Democrats' hysteria over claims of Russian hacking in the U.S. election, it's probably bad. Putin and Russia are bad again. I don't know. Time will tell. But speaking of the U.S. election, part of the reason we're being told that this shuffle is taking place is that the government needs a new face to deal with the incoming Trump administration. Freeland knows the U.S. She lived there for years in Manhattan, like Trump. She worked for Reuters and was a darling, a regular guest of the left-wing MSNBC cable news outlet. If you look at Freeland's writing for Reuters in those years, you look at her appearances on MSNBC or public television, you clearly see that she talked about herself as an American, not a Canadian, an American. So maybe she's going to go in there and try and fool them again. Then there's the fact that Freeland is a globalist and Trump definitely is not. Writing in the online magazine Little Pink Book a few years ago, Freeland wrote, "If you're interested in public affairs and public policy, you have to understand your work in an international context. Just thinking of things within national boundaries is too narrow." Well, does she understand that Donald Trump is a big fan of national boundaries, of borders, and is pulling back from what he calls bad trade deals, at least from the perspective of American workers? Is that the way to make yourself at home with the new Trump administration? Send in a Canadian that pretended for years to be an American on left-wing TV. Someone that wrote a book on the rich and how she dislikes them while being one of them. Someone that advocated, in her book, for the policies of socialist economists like Emmanuel Saez and Thomas Piketty, a pair that want tax rates for high-income earners to be at 70% or higher. If you read Freeland's book, Plutocrats, which I unfortunately did, then you'll know that she advocates for exactly the opposite of what Donald Trump plans for the U.S. economy. And with that in mind, well, I guess this should all go well, as long as we don't have another episode like this.
Young Trudeau, little potato.
If you like the video you just watched, make sure you never miss another Rebel video again. Click subscribe down below or head on over to therebel.media and become a member.